Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Strategic Command World War II, World at War. It is August of 1944. In our series, the Allies have been driven back out of France toward the Spanish border. We're holding on just barely to our control over fascist Spain, while also withdrawing some forces back to the British Isles to prevent against any sort of possible German landing there, while at the same time beginning to transfer troops into North Africa, potentially with an eye to shifting some forces to the east to defend India against the Japanese, who are slowly grinding what's left of the Chinese army down as they advance on Chongqing. Wow. And in the north, sorry about that, on Umrichi. So before we get started here, though, guys, just sort of an FYI, obviously, we've been playing this series for a while. We've got our War in the Pacific series going, which I think is one of my favorite series that I've ever done. But I'm not entirely sure what to do next. I've been kind of in a bit of a rut lately on sort of topics and games to play and whatnot. I'm really looking forward to Grand Tactician: The Civil War, which hopefully is getting close. I think they just released some footage of the Battle of Gettysburg, and it's this new grand strategy, but also the tactical element Civil War game that's in the makings. But I'm not sure what else to do right now. I just feel like the channel's in a little bit of a transitional period right now where there's not a lot of new stuff coming out, not a lot of new stuff being announced, and the stuff that I do have is not really holding my attention. Strategic Command obviously is, and so is War in the Pacific. But other than those two games, there's not a lot I want to play, and I kind of feel weird about it too, because I don't know if I've ever been in a rut like this where I just can't find anything I really want to play and talk about. But right now, anyway, that's kind of how I feel. So if you guys have any games that you're interested in, anything you're playing a lot lately, or anything you think you'd like to see me play, please feel free to leave your thoughts down below. I definitely would be interested in that. With that being said, the situation is grim on the Eastern Front in Russia, grim in China, and more optimistic in Japan, where we're at least planning a limited invasion of the Japanese home islands, probably to take place in the winter of 44, so well ahead of any sort of historical schedule. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the turn, and we're going to see, actually, let's zoom in one. Then I'll end the turn, and we'll see what the Axis powers have in store for us as we move into the Axis turn at the end of August. You can see here one of our Soviet corps there is suffering attrition, as well as an Australian corps on Borneo. Partisan activities occurring in China in the rear areas. Foreign ministers reporting success in Turkey, swinging them slightly more to the Allies. I think that brings them about to 32% in favor of the Allies, or at least they were 26% last I checked. Axis raiders are disrupting convoys to the USSR and UK. That's to be expected. UK income is 528. 351 of their income is actually going away, although they're also getting 307 from the US. Meanwhile, the US income is 677. The USSR is 507, although over half of the USSR income is via Lend-Lease. 80 from the US, and then 230. Holy crap! 233 out of... So 120 MPPs were intercepted by German U-boats? Jeez! And then India gets 99. So we'll see. That's not good news for us. Lend-Lease is very expensively failing if like a third of the revenues aren't getting to Russia. Still, 231's a big number for the Russians, but that's like a full core of reinforcements that's being denied to us. We'll see what the Germans do if they continue to try and press us down into Spain. I'd like to try and get more of these forces out of Spain if I can. We don't really have much prospect for success. The logistical challenges in the south of France and north of Spain are pretty substantial. Meanwhile, we've got a large force of Russians around Perm, which is our secondary capital, and a large bout of Russian forces around Moscow, which is obviously our primary capital. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to hold Moscow. As long as the weather is good, the German Air Force is really going to hurt us substantially. Meanwhile, the Japanese Air Force also doing some damage to the Chinese on that theater. You can see they might almost entirely obliterate our garrison unit behind fortifications just with air units. German tactical air is hitting some of our troops in southern France. We do have some interceptors that are helping to minimize the effect of that. You can see that tactical strike had no impact at all. But there's just, the Germans have so many more, they have more units, I think, than all of our allies combined. Russia, the US, UK, and that's even excluding the fact that we've got a large number of our troops fighting in the Pacific theater. So we really need to crush Japan fast. I think the other concern is once Russia falls, the Germans could use that opportunity to swing into Asia and into China. Now, I don't know that they would... Okay, I'm actually happy they pulled back toward Kazan, away from the front toward Perm, to deal with that surrounded Russian corps. A casualty of a corps losing itself is fine if it delays the drive east. But yeah, I don't know if I can hold the Germans at all. Even, I mean, they may swing in and take China. I mean, that's even if we defeat the Japanese, and that's a big if, because I think even if we take Tokyo and all the alternate capitals for the Japanese, they have so many units left that I think they'd continue to fight, I believe anyway. You can see here the Battle of Chongqing is continuing. The Germans are continuing to attack a Soviet corps down Magnotorsk down here that's surrounded and out of supply. Defensive artillery here at Moscow. They did drive in one more. Well, they almost destroyed a corps up here. They didn't finish it off yet. They damaged an army here southeast of Moscow. They're attacking some of the armies in front of Moscow. So far, the Moscow theater is not dramatically worse off this turn than it was last. This doesn't seem too devastating of a turn, although the Chinese are one turn closer to defeat, which isn't great as they drive in toward, potentially even moving in toward India or Burma, which seems ever the more likely. We probably have 2 or 3 turns before they can realistically get there just because of the logistics of moving through that type of terrain. But we're going to have to start shifting troops into India to deal with them. I also really need to get better ASW technology on my subs. I've got Americans I think are up to level 2. I really need to keep researching and get that better because the German U-boat threat is really putting a serious thorn in the side of our income here. Meanwhile, we did raise another unit toward Umrichi from a unit that was destroyed in front of... Actually, I think it was destroyed in the south of China, near the Indian border. Yugoslavian partisans are rising up against the occupation here, so we get some partisan units here in Yugoslavia. Won't make a big difference, but it'll be nice to have some sort of diversion away from the Germans. Southampton's damaged by V weapons, Maidstone as well. Moscow's damaged from bombing the 2nd Hex of Moscow. 10th Russian Corps destroyed. The Chinese lose the 8th Garrison and 12th Corps. We did get one unit that reformed, so that's nice. 13th Waffen-S suffers Special Forces suffers attrition damage. Yugoslavian partisans are rising up. And Japan loses 17 MPPs to British interdiction of Japanese convoy routes. So 2 can play at that game, although not quite as successfully, apparently. Okay. We're really going to start the movement to land in Japan very soon. And I think one thing I will need to do is before I take both of the primary capitals in Japan, assuming I get that far, I also need to be prepared to take the secondary capital that is located in Korea as well. Meanwhile, 2 new Indian units, a new Indian Corps and Special Forces unit, so that'll be nice. We'll deploy those perhaps into Burma itself. We do need to deploy some forces also along the Indian-Chinese border in that pass. But I think we'll also deploy some of these guys over here. British have a new tank unit that's arrived, so we're going to reinforce these guys. What's the supply situation in Burma? Not good. Although in the easternmost portions of Burma, it's actually better. I do have this one Indian headquarters unit that I'm going to pull back to try and get it away from the Japanese there. You can see they are moving on Chongqing, so we're kind of caught in a bit of a vice down here. Reinforce these troops. The troops in front of the capital there will reinforce. I think I'll pull this army south into Chongqing. They'll attack that tank unit. We'll do a little bit of damage there. Okay. So we did some damage to that armored unit there. Can I place one of the new units there, the new Chinese army there? I can. They're going to suffer readiness. Their effectiveness is going to be low. Readiness and morale are 50%, but it does put another army near Chongqing. It's a pocket we're building that's doomed for failure, but it's something. Meanwhile, we've got 2 corps and an army back near Umrichi, our alternate Chinese capital. The Americans, British, and Russians all have some new units to deploy this turn, so that's nice. Meanwhile, this guy suffered attrition. We'll move him forward here and take the oil fields at Tarkin. I'm hoping that generates some supply at Tarkin as well. It does at least deny the Japanese a fair bit of income. I don't know if I can get these guys out of Jolo or not. Meanwhile, their troops down here are pretty much out of supply. So the Japanese troops down here are also very low on supply. So I'm going to try and bombard these guys into Kingdom Come. I don't have a lot of strength on my battleships here, but we should at least be able to destroy that 2 supply they have, I think. Maybe drop their readiness and morale a little bit, although I think it's already very low. 19 readiness, 9 morale. You can also try and hit them with some air power here. We've got good weather, so that should make it easier to strike with large amounts of our air units. Let's move these battleships up here, see if we can't take out what's left of their supply. So they're down to... Well, it doesn't hurt... I don't know, that's weird. It's just hurting the facility. I guess it's not damaging their actual unit all that much. Because the supply still says 2. There we go. Did a little bit of damage to the core unit there. Alright. See if we can weaken them a little bit. Cumulative effect of hitting with a heavy amount of air power. So we are weakening them. I don't even know why I'm not attacking twice. I've got 2 strikes on these carriers. Alright, these guys use 2. Oh, no, they still have 1 more strike. Come on, finish them off. Alright, they all used up. Alright, finish them. Got him! Nice. Alright, so Davao, the capital of... Not capital, but the city in Mindanao here has fallen. So we'll move these guys up towards Cebu. That should improve our supply situation next turn. Well, maybe not. Not dramatically, anyway. But it is a secondary supply city. Okay, so we'll reinforce the guys who we can that are still on Luzon and the other bases here. These guys will probably join the invasion of Japan or a last-ditch effort to save China. But we have taken Davao on the southern tip of Mindanao, so the Philippines is now completely liberated. Although the port there is in serious shambles. What do we do with the upgrade? Is it just anti-aircraft defenses? And then mobility? I don't know that it's worth 114 to do that. Alright, so it's going to take a while to get these guys out of here. We can upgrade the battleship at this port, but we cannot reinforce them. Although they're already upgraded almost entirely, so we'll add anti-submarine warfare level 2. This battleship back here can upgrade back to 8. I think unless they move to like a level 10 port, they can't upgrade further. Okay, so that's a good result for us. Very good result for us. We've finally finished that. Can we reinforce these guys? Not fully. We'll move them to Dili first. Alright, so the Dutch East Indies are almost entirely liberated from the Japanese. Brunei and Miri are the only bases that are still in their control. They have a couple of units there that I don't think I can effectively reduce, so we're going to have to deal with that. Reinforce these cruisers, I guess. Trying to get a little bit of reinforcements into our units, but I think I may have to pull them further back toward Hawaii, which will probably take several turns. These carriers don't have to be pulled back, so that's good news. These light carriers here. This heavy cruiser also does not have to be pulled back, so we're going to sort of build a fleet of units that are at full strength. You know, this battleship does need to be withdrawn. Can't get it all the way to Hawaii, so we'll move it to Saipan, where I think it'll at least be able to do partial repairs next turn. We'll move this battleship can't reach anywhere. This carrier, these carriers, some of them just need their air wing replenished, but they can't do it from where they're at. Is Peleliu ours? It is, so we'll move here. I'm wondering if the air groups might be able to reinforce. I'm hopeful anyway. Because these carriers like have a full... Their hull is at 100%. It's their air groups that are not. But I also probably want to upgrade some of those air groups as well. Get their guns and stuff upgraded. I wonder if Singapore's still only a 5? That's weird to me. They had like a famously big dockyard there. I would think it would be better. Okay, so that's... I think most of those ships are dealt with, at least as far as what I can do realistically with them. The troops on the Philippines are also dealt with, at least as far as what I can realistically do with them right now. Okay, so at least the guys near the Philippines. Meanwhile, let's take a look. I can start throwing these guys on long-range transports, but I probably want to wait till I've got air cover over them to do that. Let's see if we can find where he pulled his carrier back to. Not anywhere in this part of China, anyway. Maybe he pulled it up to Cyan? He didn't. Alright, so we've got a good view of what's going on here. Could have pulled it back to Japan. Nope, we found it. Shit. And I can't hit it. My carriers have already used up their striking power, so I can't get it. Well, shit. The last Japanese carrier, the Taiho, is located on the eastern coast of China at Fuzhou. They have a total of... they have 5 naval vessels left, so they may have built some new stuff. Because they only had a few before. They may have built some new stuff. It's not in China, so it's likely in the home islands. Which makes me a little bit nervous about the security of these carriers here. We do have this cruiser in front of it. I think the question is if he knows where my carriers are. Okay, so we'll have to see about that. We'll leave these troops on there in their locations. They're going to reinforce this one unit. I think all these guys have maxed their upgrades. Let's do one thing here. I don't want to lose casualties landing on Guam. But since it's probably going to be a few turns before... I'm hoping they can get there. Let's... crap. That's not where I wanted them to go. I hope a short-range transport can get to Guam in next turn. My hope is to bring these tanks here to take Guam, which is still technically Japanese occupied and does have 1 national morale value. So I'd love to take that without loss. I'll operate these fighters forward to Okinawa so they can provide a little bit of air cover when we do start putting these guys on transports. We have new U.S. units which are arriving. What are they again? A mechanized and a heavy tank? I think those guys will go to the European theater. Well, maybe we'll move the mechanized to the Pacific. The heavy armor we're going to send to Europe. Meanwhile, the British have a tank unit here that has to go on the British Isles, I believe. I don't think we can deploy it anywhere else. I'd love to throw it into India, but I don't think that's an option. So we'll keep them probably just north of London. Meanwhile, I think that does it really for the Pacific. I don't think there's a lot else to do this turn here. We already did China as well. We move the Indian troops here. Honestly, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these paratroopers here. Oh, I don't know why it flew them. And of course I lose casualties landing on friendly territory. I really just want to operate these guys into Rangoon, which I don't think I can do yet, but I want to get them up into Rangoon so we can help defend against the Chinese invasion of Rangoon there eventually. So we've got 1 Indian Corps here. We've got an Indian headquarters unit, an Indian special forces, and an Australian Corps that are all going to help. We've also got some garrison units which are holding down partisans, and then we've got a paratrooper unit that's on its way as well. Okay. Did I have one more unit down here? I do. I would rather reinforce them, but it doesn't look like that's an option, so I'm actually going to transfer the 2nd Expedition Force of New Zealand, and we're going to send them I wonder if they're better off fighting in India. So we're going to send them around the southern coast of Australia, eventually to India. Just because I don't have a New Zealand headquarters either. I think India has decent supply. I'm not 100% sure how that'll work, but I think they'll get decent supply if they're fighting in a friendly country. Okay, so the Pacific is done. Let's move to Europe. British unit's going to take Tehran. So we've retaken Tehran from the Germans. That should help British income. Going to go ahead and transfer this field artillery to India. Toward Bombay. They should be useful there. Hopefully no submarines intercept them. Meanwhile, in the European theater, we still have this one guy here. All right, so the 2nd U.S. Army is moving into southern Italy. They're going to have very low supply, but as long as they're not fighting battles, I'm just trying to take a little bit of income away from the Germans, since they've now taken all of Italy. This U.S. Special Forces unit is going to transfer back to England. I'm building up the force in England, primarily because I think I'm going to do a landing in Norway. So I'll move them up to Newcastle. This U.S. headquarter unit's going to reinforce to full strength. These British fighters really need to reinforce or upgrade or something. So a couple of our British fighter units are going to get back to full strength. I want to do that. Let's transport this British corps to the Red Sea, eventually to India. I'm going to need to get a British headquarters unit to India as well. I don't really have a ton of British units in northern Spain, so I think Lord Gort is going to move to Bilbao, and then he's going to pull out next turn. Okay. South African HQ is going to pull out as well. I think I have sufficient naval assets in the theater to prevent a enemy landing on the North African coast. Upgrade their anti-aircraft defenses. What can we upgrade for these guys? Nothing really. All right, so next turn, 5, 5, 6. So we're going to pull these tanks back to 7. Pull these guys back into Spain, fly these fighters back toward that British headquarter unit, pull these guys. So we are evacuating France pretty much. Reinforce these guys to full strength. Why is mobility so expensive on some of these units? That just seems silly. Get our garrisons up to level 2 infantry weapons to make sure if the enemy does land in England that they're able to make a good account of themselves. All right, so that's most of our money. I think the British have a couple of units that need to reinforce their aircraft units. I would like to try and engage the German fleet, which I think is up here in the North Sea in really bad weather. But I would like to try and engage them in a battle. American subs are up to level 2 ASW. Alright, so we upgraded that guy. I don't really have enough to fully reinforce that air wing, but we'll get them up 3. Move these guys down here. Carrier's going to move into port to be safe. This American destroyer will move south to a port that's empty. Hey, we damaged a German sub here in the Irish Sea. Apparently subs attacking destroyers are not very good, I guess. Or destroyers attacking subs. I also find it interesting that they're not diving down here. They always seem to dive every other second. Wish I had brought my... I guess I could bring this carrier south, the Ark Royal down here. See if we can finish this sub off. Nice! We destroyed a German submarine! Oh my god! It's a miracle! I didn't even use my maritime aircraft, the Canadian maritime aircraft there. Alright, so... What is the German Navy? They were at 20 before, they're at 19 now. Huzzah for that. Alright. Now that I moved my whole fleet around. Okay, the fleet in Spain is... Alright, let's move this battleship back up to the... up toward Britain out of the Med. The 2 battleships at Malta, I think, are enough. Also, the fact that we still have troops in Spain and Sicily likely also means they wouldn't land. I also have Mallorca in my control. I don't know why that's... Sorry, I think that was up in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen. That's kind of annoying. Should not have moved those partisans. Should have left them where they were. Can't undo it now. All right. Where I think we've got this Brazilian corps on the way. I don't know what to do with the Brazilian Expeditionary Corps. I'm just gonna move it to Gibraltar, just because I don't want to leave Gibraltar abandoned. Okay. Meanwhile, there is a Canadian destroyer on the way. We'll go there, see if we can't get it upgraded a little bit. And I think that moves us to the Russian front. All right, this corps is going to keep moving east. Oh, they got into supply. Heck yeah. Although they're probably going to get destroyed anyway. All right, can we destroy this German army here? Switch these guys around. Well, we drove them back with that shock army. We didn't destroy them. We'll reinforce this shock army to full strength. Keep these guys on the defensive. Reinforce the troops that we can. I don't want to... you know, get too aggressive over there. What about these guys? Can't do anything to them. Jeez. Well, might as well reinforce the troops on our front lines that are getting shredded, although reinforcements are going to have lower morale and it's going to hurt their experience numbers and all that jazz. But get all these guys back up to full strength. Alright, we'll march these guys east toward Kazan. We'll reinforce the troops in front of, or to the left of Kazan. They'll probably take Kazan next turn, but we should at least keep them from advancing into the rear of Moscow. Spent almost all of our Soviet money here upgrading our, or reinforcing our casualties. Should upgrade this infantry 2 to level 2 weapons. Alright. Meanwhile, our troops in the north. German Special Forces in behind our lines at arc angle. They've stopped their advance on Murmansk, which is interesting because I don't think I can get Lend-Lease if we lose Murmansk. But they have stopped the advance there, which I don't quite understand. We got a new army that I'm going to throw in toward... I don't know where we should throw it in. I guess we could throw it in toward Moscow. And then the Soviets have 181 points remaining. We apparently have not enough money for armies or mechanized forces. We do potentially have enough for some corps. 1 corps. Sorry about that. So next turn we'll actually be getting 2 corps of infantry, and depending on how these turns fall, potentially a shock army. But probably at least 2 corps of infantry to help replace our losses. 73 MPPs left for the Soviets. The Americans have 325. The Indians have 81, which is only enough for anti-aircraft units. So we'll bank the Indian money. China doesn't have anything left. The Soviets have already spent. We'll bank there what they've got left. The British have already spent all their money. I kind of feel like we should buy a new American headquarters unit, but I'm not sure where we'd put it. I think the one we have in the Pacific is enough with the limited number of units we're going to be invading Japan with. We have 2 in Europe, which might be enough for the number of units we have there. Might not be. Go with another paratrooper unit. Or another Ranger or Marine division. We get discounts on those. Army, Corps, Garrison. Garrison we get cheaper because we have some casualties there. Honestly, the headquarter unit might not be a bad idea. I'm just not sure where. I'll go with tanks, too. Or maybe artillery might actually be a better route to go. Could help with our bombardment of enemy fixed positions, but I'm not sure where. Like Japan, it's kind of like, well, the front's too narrow to benefit from that too much. I think we'll go with Special Forces. Those seem to be the sweet spot for the Americans. It also maxes us out with those units. So the American production has a paratrooper unit coming in October, a Special Forces unit coming in October. We also have an Army coming in December, and then another Special Forces unit coming in January of 45. Meanwhile, in terms of research, Americans are working on level 5 fighters. They're currently 14% there. They're 26% to level 2 long range. They're 44% to level 3 ground attack, but we don't really have any tactical air, so that doesn't mean as much. Our level 3 ASW is at 15%. Anti-aircraft level 4 is at 60%. Industrial technology, we're at 10% toward level 4. Production is 25% to level 5. Logistics are 44% to level 5. We could throw another chit into industrial because we've got 2 levels up to go, so we probably should do that next turn if we can afford it. The British are working on level 5 tanks. They're currently at level 4. Is that tank I just bought level 4, or do I have to upgrade it? No, it's level 4. The Germans, I think, are level 5 on most techs by now. Meanwhile, the Americans have a little bit of money left that I can spend on upgrading some of our naval assets. I don't know what the advantage is of having battleships with level 2 ASW, so we'll hold off on that for now. Light cruiser can afford naval weaponry level 1, so we'll do that. Not that there's... Well, there may be a big naval battle against the Germans in the North Atlantic. That could happen. We'll see. They apparently have 20 naval units. The Italian Navy was destroyed in full, though. But we'll see. So that was the turn of September 8th. The next German turn is going to be September 22nd, and then our turn will be in the beginning of October. So that's the situation right now as of September 1944. The Allies are in some trouble. I should really move that guy up. I don't have anywhere in Spain that I've got a good enough supply to leverage those Brazilian troops. But in any event, we're doing... I don't know if we're doing okay or not. We're doing. If that's a thing. All right, so it doesn't look like the Germans have any naval vessels in southern Spain. As of a few turns ago, they had nothing at La Spezia or Rome. We've checked their Adriatic ports, at least everything but Venice has nothing. Their Italian ports look like they have nothing. I don't even think they have anything in Greece or Crete. So it looks like the North African coast is free and clear of any realistic German invasion there. I mean, I guess they could try and sneak between our naval assets. Certainly something they could try. Paratroopers maybe out of, like, Calagri. I don't know if they'd have the range to get out of Rome. But we'll see. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Let me know your thoughts on what you'd like to see more of on the channel in the future. Definitely curious about that. But with that being said, we're going to wrap this episode up here. I hope you guys are enjoying this series, as always. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'm out.